Builders, the forges of Ulm burn hot. The smiths forge the black steel, and the men of Ulm march to war. Middle Age Ulm, a nation that is often promoted as a newbie friendly nation for people starting the games, mostly because it is less magic reliant than perhaps some other ones, while still having some pretty decent tricks and a couple pretty unique spells that are pretty cool and pretty useful. They're also notable for not being as involved with the blessing system. So again, something that I think people think makes it a little easier for new players. I don't know if I fully agree that Middle Age Ulm is the perfect starting place, but I think you could also do worse. Let's see what they're all about. Ulm is a young kingdom risen from the Ulmic tribes conquered by fallen empire of Urmor. From the ashes of Urmor emerged a new kingdom true to its ancient legacy, the Enigma of Steel. Where Marignon relied on religion to build a kingdom, Ulm relied on steel. The mines of Ulm are famous for their riches, and the smiths of Ulm work the iron into black steel armor used by the knights and infantry of Ulm. The people of Ulm are heavily built by human standards. Their infantry use full chain or plate mail made of black steel. The feared Black Knights of Ulm are the most heavily armored troops known to man. The leaders of Ulm have never approved of magic, and only the master smiths are allowed to use it. The smiths are used to working in conditions that are magically unfavorable, and therefore not adversely affected by provinces that have strong drain dominion. The smiths craft armor and weaponry for lords and kings, but the strength of steel is preferred over magic. Even religion is a secondary importance in Ulm, though an iron cult that worships steel in a more devout fashion has emerged in recent times. So these are the Ulmish people, the tribes from the early age. They had been conquered by Urmor during its expansion, but after Urmor falls to the Death Gate, they have built their own kingdom, and they use the might of their arms to do so, rather than magic and perhaps even the gods. Let's take a look at our national features. We are stocky humans. If we take a look at a human chassis here, we have a little bit more HP, and we're a little bit stronger, and we have a little less magic resistant. So we are humans. We're just like humans with a little plus by our name. We have production bonuses in all castles. I don't know why that's part of the race thing there, but we have that. Military-wise, we use heavy infantry, crossbows, knights, and generally speaking, we have superior armor. Some of the heaviest armor in the game can be found in Middle Age Ulm. For magic, we have earth and fire, and we have a very rare air and astral. We have superior magic item forging, and our smith's research is not affected by drain scales. Our priests are weak, but we also have inquisitors, although when they say that, we do have holy too, so I'd say we were average priests. For scales and blesses, we have a productivity bonus of +1 and a drain limit of +1. For buildings, we have standard forts of the era. However, we have master masons who can build better forts. That means the standard castle can be upgraded to a citadel for us, and that is a very powerful piece of infrastructure. Our forts also produce 25% more resources. For sites, we only have 2. We have the Keep of Ulm, which gives us our Master Mason and our Sacred Priest people, our Lord Guardian. Now, we don't have a sacred unit. Guardians are kind of sort of our equivalent, but we don't have an actual sacred, at least not troop-wise. And our second site is the Forges of Ulm, which give us 5 Earth Gems, and that is it. So a great gem to have income of and in a decent amount. However, we have very little variety gem-wise or magic-wise, something that we perhaps want to resolve with a pretender design. Ulmish units. Ulm has quite a wide roster, one which does not include a sacred, although we have several pretty unique things in here. Let's go ahead and start way over here on our War Dog. This is a very interesting unit. It is a size 2 dog. It's just an animal. He's undisciplined. It's too bad we didn't train him. That's unfortunate. However, we have given him male barding, and this is better than most of the cavalry of the age. He has 14 head and 14 body protection. This is ridiculous. I just want to go on record. This dog is more armored than some elite troops in other armies. I don't get these often. However, I do think that they can be useful. Having them run out in front to do some arrow catching for you, just to clog up the field. If you want to do some like hold and buff, you could throw a temper armor on them and get them up to 18 protection. They have a okay attack at 11 attack with 9 damage. So a squad of these guys that a few of them happen to get the extra +3 protection is just hilarious. 18 protection war dogs. Let's go. Otherwise, they're relatively cheap to get. A few of these, like I said, just as a distraction more than anything. We don't have tight rein, so we're not going to be able to put them in formation or give them orders, unfortunately. Next up, we start a major trend for this nation. We're going to have 2 troops that are almost identical. One of them will have full chain of Ulm and a half helmet, and the other will have a full plate and full helmet. This is our famed black steel. Of note, our black steel is magic gear, so things that can damage or break them magically or just getting hit very hard, we have a better chance to be able to resist it. Pretty dang powerful and probably the best armor in the game. Just full stop. Okay, so starting in on Infantry of Ulm, we're going to have 1 billion of these guys. Let's take a look at stat-wise. 10 gold, 29 resources, 9 recruitment. As mentioned, we are better than regular troops. We have 12 HP, 11 strength, 10 attack. So a little bit better than normal. However, we suffer from a little bit lower magic resistance. For morale, we have 10 morale. This first variety is using a 2-handed length 2 battle axe. Very, very choppy here. So an 11 attack is okay for 22 slashing damage. Fit 3 of these in a square just fine. Great for killing high protection things, great for killing gods, great for killing highly armored things, or big things like giants. Overall, very nice weapon. I like these a lot when the damage is needed. We also have the second variety. He's the same. He's slightly better trained. He has 11 morale. However, our resource cost has gone up to 40, and we're wearing the black plate. Next up, we have Infantry of Ulm. This is the flail variety. Flails are a favorite weapon of mine. You get a +2 attack versus shields, and they have 2 attacks per round. So a square with 3 of these guys in it will have 6 attacks go out. 6 attacks at attack 11 for 16 blunt damage is not bad. Even for other heavy troops, 16 damage is not going to really struggle to get through a lot of things. And clearing out chaff that maybe your big guys would already overkill like 3 times over. Well, now we can do that twice with the same guy and do much better clearing. It should also be noted, I really like having this very heavy plate on 2-handed guys, since they do not have a shield to help themselves out on. We look at their actual protection, it is legitimately 23 head, 23 body. And we have mages who don't have a ton to do, so tempering armors is definitely on the table, which would add an additional 3 to this. 26 is in the realm of expander gods level of protection for just a dude in his armor. Very, very nice. Next up, we move to a shielded variety. This is, again, Infantry of Ulm. This is the base unit, 32 resources, 10 morale. He is just using a hammer in this case. I'm not in love with that. This apparently is like a spiked hammer because it also has a chance to do piercing damage. So 50% chance to be piercing, 50% chance to be blunt. Lower attack at 10 for 18 damage. I'm not too sure about this guy. The full plate version of him is again up to 23. And note we have Tower Shields of Ulm. Very heavy shield. 19 protection with 7 parry, and it's magical, so it's hard to break this thing. 19 plus your 23, you're looking at 42 protection if you just block a straight up hit. And it's unlikely that they're going to be able to break the shield. Absolutely ridiculous. These troops have a lot of staying power. doubly so with our extra morale on the heavier troop. Next up, we go back to a two-hand variety. This is wielding a two-handed maul. I think generally I would prefer to use the big battle axe, but if there's a certain circumstance that the blunt damage would do better for you, you could do a lot worse than 22 blunt damage in a guy with 23 protection on. So very usable if you need that. I would default to the battle axe though. For our last shielded unit, we have the Morning Star. Again, like flails, I kind of like these. This gets +2 attacks versus shield. Only one attack though. And yeah, I like the +2 attack. It'll really help you win line combats. Even the lighter version here has 19 protection with that amazing shield. So 38 protection if you block with your shield. Do note all these troops are very slow combat speed and map move speed because of all this heavy armor. So this guy is rocking an 8 move speed, just for reference there. And the lighter variety does no better. So combat speed, we're going to be very, very slow. 6 speed on these heavy dudes. But if you need to win a line combat, and you're at least not up against sacreds, these guys will do very well, especially against shielded units. They'll have a 13 attack with some piercing or blunt damage. Very, very good. They're not dense formations either, which in this case I think is a good thing, because we want to cover some wide space for our mages, perhaps that are buffing and throwing some spells out from behind us, or to block for our crossbowmen. Next up, we have 2 varieties of pikeneers. This is a length 5 pike. The base guy here has 11 morale. He has 28 resource recruitment cost. The heavier version, and this is probably my preferred one, has 12 morale. Do note they only have attack 10, so unfortunately they're not quite as good as repelling as you might think, but they are sending in 23 protection. So these guys would absolutely love to get both temper armors and plus attack from the fire buffs and thaumaturgy. Having a 12 attack length 5 weapon would be amazing. Do note you are paying 39 resources per guy though. This does not come cheap. Next up we have the crossbowman. This is a very strong crossbowman. He is using an arbalist, a range 50, and this bow has +2 precision, so it's relatively accurate at 50 range for 15 piercing damage. This is just ridiculous. Remember, this is armor piercing and it is piercing damage. So we are going to half it and then take 15% off. Very, very strong. Attacks once every 3 rounds. Very slow, only 10 ammo. But these guys will get the job done. Also, because we're Ulm, of course we put a plate cuirass on our crossbowmen. Why wouldn't we? So this guy here actually has 16 protection on his body. This is a troop that normal archers will actually struggle to counterfire, whereas a lot of other unarmored or lightly armored crossbowmen, you can kind of thin them out with normal archers. These guys are going to be pretty safe from that. And that 50 range is just ridiculous. Do note they are 30 resources, though. Let's skip this guy and let's look at the other one. We also have a sapper. Now, he goes down to a standard crossbow, which is only 40 range. And it's still very accurate. And yeah, he's pretty nice. His big claim to fame is he has siege bonus 5. So 10 of these guys are going to give you a lot of siege. So 0.6 from just the troop himself, and then an additional 5 on top of that. So very, very good at sieging things down. I think it is totally worthwhile to have a group of, you probably don't even need that many, 20, 30 of these guys, that their main job is just to show up to sieges. Do note that in the Middle Age, castles are the norm. It takes a long time to chew your way through a castle if you're sieging it. These guys will help make much, much quicker work of that. Going back to our Guardian, this is kind of sort of our pseudo-sacred. He is recruited in capital only. He is 20 gold, 46 resources, 31 recruitment points, but otherwise is not limited. He's just cap only. He does has castle defense too, so pretty good at holding up walls. And his claim to fame is he's wearing our black plate and he's wielding a black halberd, a length 3, attack 13, slashing or piercing 27 magic damage, And he has the Bane of Heresy effect, which is an Air of Effect 1 armor piercing fatigue damage. So if you can get these, just a handful of them on an enemy god, they will put him to sleep and he's not waking up from that. Very, very good at that. Other sacreds also, because it is area of effect, these are nice to sprinkle into your lines if you're fighting lots of big beefy sacreds, or just have a hit crew of these guys to help deal with expander gods or something like that. Very, very nice. Finally, we have the famed Black Knights of Ulm. This is an incredibly heavy cavalry. He is 23 protection. He's wearing our black plate, and his horse is the Destrier, and it is also wearing the plate Barding of Ulm, which is 20 on the body, 23 on the head. Very, very nice. Tempered armors will buff that even more. Beautiful. He has an actual lance as his main weapon, and when he uses that up, he switches over to a Morning Star. I'm not sure I love the Morning Star. I think I would prefer a broadsword, but this is totally fine. Again, you get that +2 versus shields, so, I mean, giving him a 15 attack is pretty darn nice. Definitely make sure he can get some attacks in versus shielded units. It's fine. He's also using a kite shield. I don't think we see kite shields much in early age. This is a pretty good shield. It has 22 protection on it for relatively low encumbrance. And because we're Ulm, of course we made it magical. So very, very tough unit here. You can totally expand with these. Even just a knight commander and 5 knights on guard can expand into easier provinces. And a group of knights and a attack rear can expand into some of the harder ones. Maybe not the most difficult, but still pretty good. They also have enough protection that depending on the spells you're lobbing, they might be okay from friendly fire and not have to worry about it too much. Do watch out for crossbows, though, because if we half this and then take 15%, you're looking at like 10 protection. Again, just the power of crossbows. Heroes, commanders, and prophet. Hero-wise, we have 3 heroes, kind of similar. We have Hero. This is just a Black Knight who is slightly better at leadership. It's whatever. We have Hero. This is the same thing again, but he has recuperation because he rides around on a black unicorn for some reason. So he has recuperation. I mean, I guess that's cool. Sure, I'd use them. And we have the heroine. We've seen her before in some other nations. She's okay. She has a lot of patrol bonus, which maybe could be useful for you. She also has a short bow and a light lance. Her thing, though, is her unicorn is not armored. So if you are going to use her in combat, make sure to give her some barding. Definitely wants that. For commanders, again, we have a pretty wide roster here. For our scout, we don't have a scout. We have a spy. This is not an assassin. He's an actual spy. 60 stealth is pretty good. You do pay, I mean, he's 80 gold, 5 resources, 2 recruitment points. So he's a little on the pricey side. Not slow to recruit or anything. And he has the spy ability. This lets us do Instill Uprising, which will raise unrest in a province. Or we can try to infiltrate and look at the score graphs of the nation we're infiltrating. These guys are fine. If you don't have independent scouts, you can totally use them to scout. That is a little on the pricey side, but that's okay. The Instill Uprising can be very powerful if you can get it off, but other times you're just throwing away your 80 gold. So have to kind of weigh your options on this guy. Next up, we have 4 varieties of commander. So we have the chain version, we have the plate version, we have the chain version, we have the plate version. So essentially 100 leadership across the board on all of them. They're costing a little over 40 resources and 100 gold, and 95 gold to recruit. They are 1 recruitment point. So at our Citadel, we actually have 3 recruitment points. So you could, in theory, get 3 of these guys in a turn. Very usable. It's nice to have a very heavily armored commander. I would probably lean towards the heaviest armor on these guys. We're already going to be slow on map move anyways. He's not going to slow anyone down. Slow combat speed on a commander is actually kind of a good thing. Good shield, an okay weapon. Yeah, very usable here. 100 leadership, we can get into formations. Now, do note that's only a +1 morale bonus. As we saw, 10, 11 is kind of our morale, which isn't that high. We would like some extra morale bonuses. Do note we're not sacred, so we can't do it that way. So items would be the way to go about giving him some extra command. It might be worthwhile. Next, we have the Black Lord. This is the commander version of our Black Knight, and pretty good again. He's equipped the exact same way. He has 100 leadership, so he can do formations. Do note, if you don't have any knights, be careful about putting this guy as your army leader, because somebody could try to snipe him out by firing cavalry if he's the only guy, and 50 crossbows will definitely kill him. So just be aware of that. Have some other cavalry if you're going to use them. The nice thing about him is he's at our fastest move at 16. So for example, in the game behind us here, I actually have some spots. This is my capital, 16 movement to get here, 13 to get here. So I actually 15 to get here. So I actually have some areas that they can move to provinces. So I was expanding with knights before multiple wars kicked off, and I was able to take advantage of that extra move speed to get knights up to reinforce various different fronts. So pretty good. Good guy to possibly thug out even. He has 17 HP, which isn't the worst. An item or two just to buff that a smidgen more would sure be nice. Maybe give him a Mace of Eruption or a Coral Blade to give him HP. You're probably not going to beat the full plate for protection, but you could go with like Armor of Elements to give him resists, a Bracelet of Protection, and would bump his protection more. And when you give him extra from Temporal Armors, that'll boost it even more. So very good. This is probably somebody you'd want to give items to. And as Ulm, we're good at forging, so you'll probably want to do that at some point or another. Next up, we have the Black Acolyte. This is our priest level 1 sacred. That's all he does. I generally would never get this guy. I suppose if you're needing to do banishment spam, you could get 3 of these guys out of a citadel per turn, so there is a use case to him. Otherwise, I think we have better priests. Next up, we have the Master Smith. This is the non-sacred version. He is Fire 1, Earth 2, and has a 20% chance to get Fire, Air, Earth, or Astral. So this is where the very, very low Air, Astral come in. And we would really like to at least get the Air so we could do some Alquill forging. You're probably going to get a lot of these. These are probably your recruits outside of your capital, since the other guy we're going to look at is cap only. Beyond that, he is 11 research for 148 per year. So not the most efficient, in fact, a little inefficient, but I feel like that's fine here because he also gives a resource bonus 10. So just having him in a fort gives you 10 more resources that are available. So remember, our troops are very expensive on resources, and oftentimes in a good fort location, you'll need several of these guys to be able to max out like knight recruitment. So I think this cost is okay, even if I don't love it. He is an unhindered researcher. This means he's not affected by the drain scales. And do note here, unlike the mundane researcher, he actually, I think, can take advantage of magic scales. By default, you could only go up to magic 1. I don't think it would be worthwhile here, but just of note, he could benefit from that. So maybe you have some enemy territory that you could research in or something like that. Also, he has a forge bonus. This reduces the cost of items he is making. So that's minus 2 gems, and a hammer is minus 2 more. So you can make 5-point items or 5 gem items for a single gem. So Alquill's Hoe, if you can get that air income and an air guy rolled up. Otherwise, not the best combat caster. He can earth power. You could build yourself a jar of fire and then Phoenix power, and then you'd be at Fire 2, and you could do some buffing with that or some other combat abilities. That's okay. I think you're mainly going to be using them for earth buffs, though. Blade Wind actually is not too bad for us because we are so heavily armored and we have the option for big shields that we'll probably not get too bad friendly fire on it, even if that's not the spell we'd like to be casting. Something to keep in mind. Next up, we have the Master Mason. He's a cap-only unit. 80 gold, 52 resources, so he's a little pricey. 1 recruitment point. He is the unit that has Mason, which allows us to upgrade a piece of fort 1 level higher than normal. So we have the palisade, the fort, the castle, and then the citadel. So we can go all the way up to the citadel, which is the highest I believe anyone can go in the age. There's a couple other people who can also do it, but it is quite an advantage. Do note, though, those are tempting targets. Somebody else would sure like to take your citadel, so just be ready to defend them. Beyond that, he actually is kind of useful. He has castle defense bonus 20. So if you had like an army marching towards one of your forts and you had a couple turns for warning, 6 of these guys would be 120 extra castle defense. Have fun chewing through the high defense value, high wall value of a citadel with a bunch of these guys in it. In addition, he also has siege bonus 30. So maybe this guy combined or instead of sappers is another option. So siege bonus of 30. So he does 30.8 siege each. So again, like 6 of these dudes is over 120 siege. That's a lot of siege power. You can crack forts quite quick here, which is appreciated. We're a very slow moving army. We want to get there, get the job done, and keep moving. Because for the most part, our armies are moving one province per turn. We don't want to be sitting still when we could be marching. Next, we have the Lord Commander. This is the cap-only pseudo-sacred. He's very interesting. Unlike the lower one, which just had castle defense, he actually has Halt Heretic. This is essentially awe against sacred things. And he has at level 3, which is pretty high. This is an option maybe for like army thugs if you're fighting somebody who's using a ton of sacreds. I could see that. He doesn't even really need much. If I was going to do that, maybe just give him a bracer of protection. That would cost you 1 gem. And then when you temper armors on him, he's going to have like 27 protection or something ridiculous like that. It's a thing. I don't know. You could find something to do with it. Also, next up, we have the Black Priest. This is a recruit only in capital. He is the priest level 2, and he is an inquisitor. Inquisitor basically means that when you are preaching against another faith, your priest level is doubled. So he counts as a holy 4 for the purposes of preaching to get rid of enemy candles. So if you can get a few of these guys out on your borders, you can eat enemy candles quite efficiently. Also, if you're having to siege out an enemy and let's say their god's in there, their god's getting bonus HP based on candles. 4 or 5 of these guys will eat those candles alive before you have to go in there and do your big fight. Otherwise, they have Earth 1 along with their priest level 2, which is important for some spells that we get. He has the 10% chance for a random, so you're unlikely to get it, unfortunately. Research-wise, 58 gold per year for 7 is efficient. I don't think I'm getting this guy as my researcher, but if you have a couple and you don't have anything to do with them, at least they're not like super inefficient or something. Finally, we have the Priestsmith. This is a cap-only mage and an incredibly good one. So for 245 gold, 7 resources, 2 recruitment points. Do note, we start with a citadel in our capital, so you can get 1.5 of these guys per turn. He pulls in 11 research, but because he is sacred, he's only 98 gold per year. So in 2 turns, you can have 3 of these guys. That's 33 research every 2 turns coming out. That's not bad, and that's only 300 gold per year, a little less for upkeep. You can actually do a lot of early game research as Ulm, even though you're taking Drain most likely. Magic-wise, he has Fire 1, Earth 2, no randoms. Priest level 1, he is Sacred. He gives you the 10 extra resources, and he only has a Forge bonus 1. So you're better off forging with the other guys rather than these. However, very good. I would get a ton of these guys. They're going to be able to do buffs. They're going to be able to throw our special spells. They're going to throw magma spells. They're efficient researchers. They're going to help you get extra knights possibly out of your capital with the extra resource bonus. Very good. And I love nations whose main researcher can double as a combat mage, and that is very much the case here, that he can do that. Who would I make my prophet? I think generally speaking, you're looking at a Black Lord. I think that's what I would want to go. He has the chance to be able to move at least 2 provinces. He has nothing else really to do, so he would make a fine one. If not him, I would probably go with one of the heavy shield guys. as a more defensive option. I would probably not go with the Lord Guardian, as funny as it would be with Halt Heretic for like an arena fight. I'd prefer the shield versions here. 17 HP on the Rider also, compared to 14 here or 16 here. So he has the highest HP also. Pretty good either way that you decide to go on that. As for magical items, we actually have one national item. The Black Halberd is the same thing seen on our Guardians. It is not bad. For 5 Earth Gems, note we have 5 income, and we can produce this for 1 gem if we're using the correct smith with a hammer. Not terrible. It's a 2-handed weapon. It has the piercing and the slashing damage, has the fatigue thing. I probably never would build these. I think you're almost always better off with just a shield, but maybe. The fatigue damage is interesting. We could just recruit troops that have this weapon though, and they don't cost gems, so I don't think I'm building this. We could even get a commander that has it if that's what we want. Also, just a piece of lore here. Those early items that sometimes you end up crafting for defense, black steel plate, black steel full plate, this is very close to the armor our regular troops are wearing. And the helmet here too, the black steel helmet. So just note, our troops have like the very slightly budget version of these. So our troops are worth like 9 gems worth of equipment. Just food for thought on how good this Ulmish armor is. That is ridiculous there. While we're in items, other things of note here that I think are valuable. Fire in a jar. We could craft this again with the right guy for a single fire gem. And in combat, what that'll let us do is do the Phoenix power up to fire 2 to do other fire things that we normally would not be able to do. We'll spend the gem to cast the buff, and then we'll lose the gem, but we'll still have the buff on. Another one I've mentioned a few times is the Bracers of Protection. Gives you 2 extra protection on your head and body. And I believe this interacts with temper armors for extra armor because it counts as a different piece. So very nice. And again, we could craft it for a single gem. I would totally stick that on tons and tons of people. Otherwise, I think things like the Scepter of Authority for extra leadership gives you a spell that your commander can do if he's not in combat. Mace of Eruption is a great early game one. We could again make it for a single gem. Gives us an area of effect attack. Great for our commanders, which we don't have the best attack density outside of those 2-handed flails. Just a way we could boost that. Going deeper down here, probably not getting a ton of these, but other things that are like AoE is what you would be looking at. The Flambleu is something somebody mentioned. This bad boy here has the spell Holy Fire, which is armor piercing, area of effect 3, and it does triple damage against undead and demons. So I do think if you are fighting one of those in Middle Age, which, you know, we have several targets there, this would be pretty good. You could give this to a guy in full black steel with a bracer protection, and he would be good to go to get up there and do some army thugging, and you will kill a lot of long dead. A lot of long dead with something like that. They are going to not be able to get through that plate, especially buffed, and this will just hack through them quite efficiently. And again, this one's a little more pricey and a little harder to make, but it's interesting at least. Beyond that, I do think that as a nation, Astral could be really nice for us. It would allow us to teleport our god around to help with claiming. We're only going to have a profit. We also could maybe do gate to move around entire armies. As mentioned, we are very slow. So if we could teleport 5 provinces rather than spend almost half a year marching, that could be really valuable. In addition, we have some very rare astrals. Maybe giving them an astral booster could be useful. We can gear things out very well. So maybe Construct Golem would be useful. I believe he comes in Astral 2, so Astral boosters would be nice for him. Of course, Dwarven Hammers, obviously something we're going to want. Earth Boots, obviously something we're going to want. Miscellaneous items, this depends on what gems we get and who we can boost. If you're going to empower somebody to do crafting, think carefully about who it's going to be. Do you want efficiency? Do you want Master Smith? Which way is best to go? Another item that's pretty good on just all nations, but because we can make it very cheap, is the Girdle of Might. Gives you an extra 3 strength, but more importantly, gives you 3 reinvigoration. We tire ourselves out quite badly. We have a lot of encumbrance on a lot of troops, so that is something that we could do that would help counter that. As for magic spells, we have several national spells. In Thaumaturgy, level 5, we have Tempering the Will. This could be cast by essentially all of our mages if they do a Summon Earth power. And it is nice. It is an area of effect the entire battlefield. It's only 20 fatigue, and it raises our magic resistance. I believe this is a +1. I don't think this one's a +2. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please. Now, it does say on here, magic resistance negates easily. What this means is it's an easy roll for your own troops to not get the buff. So if I needed this, I would probably script multiple of these. 3 or 4, I would say. And it's not terrible. So summon Earth Power, well, maybe bless or get blessed, summon Earth Power, and then cast this, and then do whatever else you're going to do on a couple mages, a few mages. Totally worthwhile if you're fighting things that have magic resist stuff. Next, in Evocation, we have some really interesting ones. At Evo 3, you have to have a Holy level 1, Earth 1. So this is going to be a very specific, it's our Smith Priest, essentially. We have Iron Darts. These are essentially crossbow bolts that deal double damage versus magic beings, and they are specifically called out as being an iron attack for anyone like genies or fae that are weak to that. Does 13 piercing magic damage. Not terrible. 3 plus effects. So if you have extra earth, which you will because you're going to be an earth 2 on that mage at least. And if you're earth 2, you could earth power up to earth 3. So you could be firing 5 bolts from just this single spell. And it's very precise at precision 5. So a nice little combat spell. You would prefer your guys cast this over magma, I think, because this is going to be pretty easy for your troops to ignore, whereas the magma can sometimes light you on fire. In addition, if we go up to 6, we have Iron Blizzard. Same Earth 1, Holy 1, but now we do 20 plus effects. And our precision's down a little bit and our cost is up. But this is just I'd like to fight in the shade type spell. You can get so many bolts in the air. Like 5 of these dudes would have over 100 bolts in the air. And this is not a crossbow, so you can actually do this. You'd probably get 3 of these off before you passed out. But at the beginning of combat, that's quite a bit. Do note that the range is a lot lower than the other one. The other one was, I believe, 40. This is only 30. But that also means that it's going to be more accurate because we are closer. A cool spell, if not, I don't know. Some people really go all in on this. We'll talk about that when we talk about blesses. So I don't know. Maybe that's to taste. Finally, in Conjuration, we have the ever classic Sloth of Bears that they're just hoping. If you luck into enough nature gems, you're never going to waste them on this. You're going to empower somebody so he can do nature crafting, which would be rings of regeneration or supply items or disease healing items. Forget bears. Bears are nothing. Don't even talk to me. However, if we have a game go late, we can contact Iron Angel. 25 Earth Gems is a bit pricey, but again, we have 5 native income. It's going to be our best thing we probably search for, and we have cost reductions on things we make. For a Earth 5, Astral 2, so very doable. Even if you had to bootstrap this, this is doable. You get a Iron Angel. We'll look at the chassis here in a second. You get a single one, and you can't cast him underground, but it is a very, very strong leader. Let's take a look at him. We have the bears. They are bears. They don't even have dark vision. Don't get the bears. We have Iron Angel. This thing is essentially a non-sacred, non-magical pretender chassis. This dude is really tough. You get 63 HP, 22 strength, 16 attack, 14 defense, which is pretty good on something this big. Combat speed 12, it is a flyer, so actually can get around a little bit. Map move 22, can actually move around a little bit. If the game went long and I needed a new prophet, I would definitely make one of these my prophet. How cool would that be? He has Halt Heretic 9. this is going to be ridiculously hard for Sacreds to attack. They're going to fail that Fear Aura, not the Fear Aura, the Awe Aura very, very often. Very, very often. Shock Resist 5, Fire Resist 5, does not need to eat, has a built-in reinvigoration of 4, so his encumbrance value here is really only 2. And he's ambidextrous 2, which lowers the penalty for dual wielding. What does he wield? Well, he comes in with a Sword of Sharpness with 18 attack value, 32 magic damage, and it's armor piercing because it's magical. And he has Divine Grasp, length 1, attack 16. It does 20 magical damage. Now note here, it does double damage versus magical beings, and it has that Bane of Heresy effect. This is a God Slayer. 1 or 2 of these guys on like hold and attack enemy flyer or large enemy monster, if they're running around with a monster or Titan pretender, you will hold a couple rounds, get some buffs hopefully, and then you will fly casually over there and delete them because you are probably not getting 1 or 2 shotted with our 26 protection. Again, we can temper armors very easily. We could give him a bracer protection very easily. Some extra elemental resistance would not go astray. Maybe that Belt of Might to get his reinvigoration up to 7. So he is fatigue neutral. He can fight literally forever. Very, very powerful. I love this guy. I want to use this. Such a cool spell. Otherwise, magic. Because you're probably going to want to go for Iron Darts at least some point, that means you're going to turn on things like Fireball and Magma Bolts. The guys seem to really like to spam Magma Bolts. And this isn't the best. At 25 plus, this is actually hard enough to hurt our own troops. And it sucks when you light your troops on fire and they burn to death. Very unfortunate. I wish we could blacklist spells, even if it was just a single spell, or favorite a spell. Like, dude, cast Iron Darts when you go off script. It's a great spell. You could totally do this forever, but is what it is there. As mentioned, we want temper armors. This is normally a spell that annoys me on a lot of nations because your mages will cast it when it's not relevant. It's very relevant here. +3 protection to all armor parts. Helmet, chest piece, bracer protection. +3 on all of those. That's an incredible swing. Incredible. And even the low level version is area 5+. I think it is totally worth rushing to construction 3 on this nation just to get this on the way, frankly. And yeah, that's going to make your troops very, very tough. Beyond that, Soldiers of Steel gives you the same thing in a larger area, as does Legions of Steel, which is the entire battlefield. In addition here, I actually really like some stuff up on 6. This is a nation I actually would consider this. Mechanical Min is not great, but it could be a break in case of emergency spell. We have all of our researchers and all of our mages can essentially cast this. It's 15+. They're pretty tough chassis. Could be something useful. Legions of Steel frees up more mages, so you don't have to point buff. You could just hit everyone and be done with it. Forge of the Ancients gives us all magic items have their gem cost reduced by 20%. So you are getting ridiculously high on reductions if you can get this up. And all mages craft items as if they have Master Smith +1. That means you can craft an item 1 level higher than you. So in Earth 2 could craft Earth Boots if you had this running, which would then take him up to an Earth 4 if he put the boots on. Very, very nice. This also means that, let's say we do Nature and Power 1. Well, now we're a Nature 2 mage. That's huge for being able to craft things, or Death is another one. You could get to Death 2. You could make a staff. Very, very nice. That gets you to Death 3. Death 3, you can start climbing Death pretty effectively. Great, great enchantment. And we have Golem Construction. I like these guys a lot. They come in as Astral 2s. They have a decent amount of HP. They're mindless, so they're kind of immune to certain things that kind of kill off thugs. And we are great at crafting gear, so we can kit this dude out. And if we give him just a single booster, he can teleport. So you have a teleporting thick thug that you can run around with. Very, very nice. He also is somebody who could possibly cast Gate for us. Natively, we have very rare astral ones, so this kind of breaks us into another type of magic pretty effectively. In Conjuration, of course, Earth Power, as mentioned a lot. In Alteration, I do like getting a little bit of Alteration just to get the Earth buffs for your mages. Having them cast Personal Stone Skin or Personal Iron Skin makes them much less likely to catch a stray and get killed. But beyond that, you could go up to like Destruction if you need to take out enemy armor, or Curse of Stones. This can be quite devastating. Causes a D4 fatigue per square moved, combat speed's lowered, and it gives them extra encumbrance. Very powerful, actually, against enemy units. In Enchantment, we have the Earth buffs, Strength buffs. We don't need these a ton because we have big two-hander guys, but what's better than a big two-hander? Well, more strength than a big two-hander. So, like, the big maul guys with giant strength and Earth Shatter hammers will absolutely devastate like a monolith. Blunt and slash weapons will now stun on hit. So if somehow you didn't kill them, now you're stunning them. This would also be really good on your Morning Stars, or your flails even, because you can. It's on hit, not on damage. So you can hit them. That will stun them. That lowers all their defense. That allows you to get armor defeating hits. Pretty nice. This is a spell I really would like to try using more, but maybe on this nation. Maybe this is the nation that can do it. In addition, we also have Weapons of Sharpness. This can make slash and piercing weapons deal additional AP. That is the half armor when you hit something within AP damage. Very strong there. Riches from Beneath is another one. Could give us some extra resources, some extra income. Very nice. And in Thaumaturgy, we also have some other spells I think are worth talking about. One is the Battle Fury fire buff line. With Jars of Fire, we can do this, and our troops would really like the extra morale and the extra attack. I do like that quite a bit. I think having a couple mages that do that in your army could make quite a difference, especially if you can get them on like the key troop, like those two-handed flails. Giving them an extra 2 attack would really help them out. And then, of course, those get bigger and bigger. If we broke into nature, we could nature buff our dogs, which would make them quite nasty. Quite nasty with that. Teleport also comes from here if we were to go for the golem strat. Teleport item might actually be vaguely useful on this nation because we're going to be crafting a ton. And gateway at 6. This does require 4, so that's kind of difficult and it is a bit expensive. But you can take all the troops that you are leading and you can teleport 6 provinces. I think you have to go lab to lab. Yeah, enter a distant laboratory. So you do have to have labs at both ends, but six provinces is half a year of marching for Ulm. That's huge. And you can teleport into castles that are under siege. So you could back up something that you were going to lose. Doubly frustrating for an enemy that spent like 3 years sieging that castle down ever so slowly. And then you just teleport in like 100 arbalists and kill their siege. So hilarious there too. Overall, we don't have a ton of variety and we have a lot of buffs. That would be my summation of our magical abilities. Okay, so let's bring all that together. We are a nation of very good troops. We don't have sacred troops, but we do have some sacred mages who have special sacred spells worth thinking about for our blessed there. We have expansion potential either via troop or via the knights, which lean towards scales. Scales expansion, I think, is on the menu here. In this game behind us, I did okay, but I got boxed in super early. This is on the harder AI settings, the smaller map with the less thrones, testing out for the streams coming up. This has been a really difficult one. I bumped into people basically right outside my cap circle, and I'm in a 3-way war with Jotunheim, with Archocephali, and with Phaecia. Very, very tough. I'm slowly beating Phaecia while just trying to hold off the giants. But the nice thing here is I have an answer to everything. Their sacreds were causing me some problems in Phaecia. I switched over to flail shielded troops that could beat their line troops. And I'm getting guardians. He has a fire dragon as his god. I just bounced off of Phaecia. He got me. But when I come back with 20 guardians, that dragon's going to fall asleep on round like 3 when he lands, and he will die. So that's going to be super easy. For the giants over here, I've been using these big maul troops. You also could use the axe troops. I'm just testing the different ones. So we can smash giants quite effectively with those big two-handed weapons. And our armor, even our lower armor, is hard enough that you might actually survive a hit from a giant, which is cool. I'm building sappers. We were using sappers. We had to take this fort. And I had sappers here that were breaking me into this one. So we have lots of different choices on troops. Don't get greedy like I was at the beginning here and insist on only the best. Your weaker, quote unquote, troops still have 19 protection. And if you could get 3 or 4 more out, I think that's more valuable than tougher guys, especially in the expansion phase. If we look at Ulm here, this is a production 3 citadel. And if I turn off what I'm recruiting, I currently have 503 resources and 500 recruitment points. Do know I do have some people, remember these buff 10 each, but this is only 60 extra. That being said, in the early game especially, when you need like a knight commander, and we're going to get a researcher, and then we need to get knights, right now I could get a pretty good number. At the beginning of the game, I was getting 2, maybe 3. So I needed like 2 or 3 turns for an expansion party. Just note, you need resources like no tomorrow. And even if we didn't go that route, let's say we wanted to try expanding with maybe the flails might be an option. So like these guys, I was able to get about that many before I ran out of resources. Now I can get that many. So just note that production is very important for us. Don't think you can just rely on this, because it still takes time to get them. And time is of the essence. We definitely need to be out there and getting forts. I didn't fort early enough in this game, so these forts were both built while I was at war. Very difficult to do. I had to protect them. This one keeps getting sieged. I don't have enough troops to fight all 3 wars. So, something to think about. I did get out relatively early and start site searching. I do think you want to do that. Is very important we get the gem income. We can make gear, or we could summon in troops with that to bolster ourselves up where we might otherwise be deficient. Let's take a look at pretender design. Ulm has a pretty decent variety of pretenders here, but I feel like we're a little limited. We most definitely do not want to take anything that has sloth. I think that's just off the table. I think that's foolish. Beyond that, I think you can get away with whatever you want, as long as you go scales. I think at minimum, you need to go order and production. Anything else, I'm willing to negotiate. I don't think we want death. I think that's asking for trouble. I think we want a lot of drain. And I don't know if you noticed in the game I was showing in the background, our troops are so bloody slow anyways that the snow doesn't affect us. So we might as well go cold if we need extra points. So just another food for thought there. We don't have sacred troops, so something like a just cheap Irminsul regen is completely out. All we have are some sacred mages. What is sacred mages like? Air for precision, earth for reinvigoration, and astral for farcaster. I think you can make a totally viable god if you wanted to do that, doing something like that. Let me look for somebody super duper cheap. Okay, a great sage. This would be fine. We like research. He can help with that. Let's go. We would go really high drain. We would go with our production. We would go with that. Let's say 5 as a starting point. Heck, we might even be able to go. Well, we'd probably want the decent bless. So we need 4 here. Start with 4 there and 4 there. Let's see what that gets us. So we're going to want Farcaster. That gives us 50% extra range on our spells. That turns our national spells into 60 and 45 range. Very, very nice. 45 range on that 20 bolt plus 1 is devastating. So let's throw that on there. Let's say a couple extra precision. Either making our smaller spell that's precision 5 up to a 7, or you could even go higher than that. And then let's say we throw on some reinvigoration. Let's say like 2 of that. Where does that put us? Only at -1 bless point. Okay. Let's go with the extra astral. And you know what? We got lots of points left. Let's grab some fire here. And we have an extra scale. Sure. Maybe we take the cold, we go extra here. Maybe we go extra there. Having the luck helps protect us from bad drain events. So maybe that's it. Or maybe you go more rainbow on this guy and he can get out sight searching. We have 2 extra points here. I think I would probably go extra reinvigoration. Do note that while let's look at, this guy. This does not say that we're not affected by drain scales for casting, only for research. When you are in drain scales, it makes it so that you take extra fatigue when you cast, and it can be kind of noticeable. So going heavy drain like this, you're going to put your mages to sleep pretty quickly. Note, the enemy will also have that problem. So the extra reinvigoration just helps counter that some. And yeah, I think this is totally fine. I would play this guy. Yeah, if I wanted to go with the caster type bless, this would be very doable. Beyond that, I don't think we need the awake expanders. I think we need the scales, and you just can't make a good awake expander. The one exception I might listen to would be a Titan of the Forge if you're doing something very specific with his pathing. Like you're gonna get, I don't know, like you're gonna do something with some nature. And so you need some nature on somebody who can forge, like right off the bat. This is fine. This is fine. But we're not going to have that more interesting bless that we had. So I don't know about him. I think you could go immobile if you had something to do. Remember, again, we do not have a sacred. So many things about how we pick our pretenders are kind of out the wall here. So if you were going to go with these guys, I'm not entirely sold. Irminsul would be interesting in that he gives you a sight. Even if you put him imprisoned, you start with a sight in your capital. It gives you 1 nature gem. That's something. I do think gem income here would be very valuable because we could craft with it. So any pretender that has gem income, if you could make an argument for what you're going to do with it, craft-wise, I think could be valuable. We want to stay away from magic here because I think we do want to go drain 3, and this would just counter that. There's a couple interesting ones. This one right here gives you a water gem and a nature gem. So maybe you can luck into use her to find like 1 or 2 more sites, and then you could go and empower one of your crafters to make some interesting items. This would allow us to get underwater with water bracelets, per se. I believe our magical armor is immune to rusting. So one of our like knights with a ring of water breathing on, and I don't know, like a ring, like a base of eruption and a bracer protection, he could probably do some underwater expanding. Not well, but he could probably do it. So that's vaguely interesting to me. Another one that you don't see a ton of is this one, the Matrona of Healing Spring. She's very expensive at 270, but maybe this is like an imprisoned. What makes her interesting is she has a sight, and this sight heals afflictions. It's a sight with healing. She also has healer 1 herself. So this would be one. I don't know exactly what we're doing with this. And she's so bloody expensive. I would probably want her to be imprisoned, although maybe not. This is fine. Like, again, 5 just kind of go in the middle of the road here. I don't know exactly what we're doing with this, but let's just give her some. Heck, she even has an extra one. That's actually, okay, that's not too bad. We have 9 points. That's not really going to help us. We take maybe some cold resistance that'll help our mage and our mage fatigue in the cold. And maybe we take like low light vision. Again, help our mages fighting underground. We do have very resilient troops, so we could just fire magic over their heads. That would help with that. And maybe heroism? Okay, yeah, that's fine. Or alternatively, I guess we could go... we could add true sight to that, maybe. I don't think that's really needed. Maybe just some extra heroism. I don't know. This is fine though. You could totally come up with something to do here. Our mages are kind of old, so you could go with something with that. I don't think it's really needed though. So I don't know. Something interesting, something different for sure. Expander monsters, I don't think so. At least with the Titans, we can forge them a full kit of gear, like Divis of the Sun. She's got 2 fire gem income. That could be pretty helpful for getting lots of stuff. But yeah, at least up here, we could give them equipment and they could do something with that. Most of the monsters are not going to be particularly good at that. I think that's a skip for me. Down here, we do have several interesting options. We have the Master Alchemist. He has Alchemist 100. I believe the equation on that is it doubles the amount of gold you get from rituals, which give gold. So that's pretty good. Do I want my god casting that? No, not really. But it's a thing. I mean, we are going to have lots of earth gems and probably can get some fire gems. So he could make some extra money for us. We have the Svartov Mastersmith. This is the shape changer into the Lenomer. Remember, the Lenomer has poison stuff, so be careful with that. But he has Dragon Master. You could summon in some Earth Drakes or something, although they're not going to love the cold that we're going to be in, probably. He has Mastersmith, or we could go Eldest Dwarf. Eldest Dwarf is very cheap. He's only 80 points, and he comes in with Mastersmith, so he crafts as if he's 1 level higher. I think that's most relevant if you're going to give him Astral, so you could do like Rings of Wizardry or Rings of Sorcery, something like that. Could be pretty good there. We talked about the Great Sage, could be useful for extra research. Glamour Gem here on the Enchantress. Interesting slew that we could do there. Let's take a look at who we are probably going to play. This is Glinth, the Eldest Dwarf. He is made for several specific reasons. I did take Farcaster, and I took 3 Reinvigoration on him. So this will help out our Priest Mages fire off those cool spells and be a little less tired while doing it. This also applies to him. So if he's doing combat magic, that will be useful there. We did go essentially full scales. You could get rid of some of this drain or some of this cold and something else. But I found that this is a pretty good combo. With the high order and the high luck, I didn't have any events in 2 years that did op kill or lose gems. You could have an event with Drain 3 that you lose all of your gems. I don't know if it's Drain only or if it requires a second scale. And if it does require a second scale, it's probably Turmoil or Misfortune. So I definitely wanted to get as far away from those as I could. This is a lot of income. It's got some growth potential. This will help recuperate from any really bad winners population-wise. I liked it a lot. He's pathing. There's a few things he's going to do. He can do astral boosters. He can bootstrap you easily into your earth boots. He can do some important summons. So not only can he do the Iron Angel summon for us, which I think is really cool and I want to use, he also can do Flame Spirit. Flame Spirit is a Fire 3 summon that would give us the ability to do flaming arrows on all of our crossbows. And because the crossbows fire so slow, you're only going to miss on 1 volley. They'll fire once, and while they're reloading, you'll get the fire arrows off, and they'll have that for the rest of their shots. Pretty darn nice. In addition, the extra fire would allow us to do the Battle Fury line quite easily. Again, our troops would really like that +2 morale and +2 attack. So that gives us something to do with fire gems also, because there's only so many fire items that we can craft. If we got there, and if we're heading towards Iron Angel, we're going to go past Flame Spirit anyways. I think that would be quite good. As mentioned, we need these. I think we actually need 5 Earth, but we can Earth boot easily enough to summon in the Iron Angel. He also can gate just right off the bat. And he also can do the Golem creation. So this is a guy that when he comes in, I'm going to want to get out and site searching. Ideally, I want to find some astral income. I really want some astral income. I believe golems are 25 a pop. I think a gate is like 15. So if nothing else, 2 or 3, 4, 5 astral would allow us to do some golems. And even just the golems themselves, a couple pieces of armor for 1 earth gem each. Maybe he gets a chest piece. He gets a skull cap, a starskin skull cap, or whatever they call it now, crystal gear. The thing that gives you +1 astral. Or he could, well, no, you'd need the +1 actual booster. That way he could teleport. And then give him like a Rod of Eruption, maybe, or a brand, a frost brand or a fire brand, or anything else that AoEs, and he could also have a shield on him. He could be quite the terror because he could teleport in. Quite hard to deal with something like that. They would also give us people who could cast anti-magic, so we could go into a fight, do a couple rounds of trying to do our natural magic resist buff, and then we could top it up with one of those. So that would really help patch up that hole that we have in our resistances on our troops. Beyond that, he's nothing too special. He doesn't shapeshift or anything, so he is quite vulnerable with 11 HP. Definitely going to want to give this dude a lot of gear if he's going to be in combat. For sure. Like, be careful with him. He would like things like arrow protection, just lots of protection in general. Maybe one of those belts of might. I think is it long strider boots that also give recuperation. Just anything that gives you extra fatigue recovery, so he can keep blapping spells out. This is a pretty good caster buff, so he can take advantage of that. He can do some of the big battlefield things. You could earthquake. Our troops are pretty immune to that with the amount of armor they have. So maybe give him something that gives him levitation or flying or something, and then he could just earthquake the heck out of the map. Could be something that people wouldn't be expecting, and your troops would basically be immune to it with the amount of armor that they've got. So either way, I think that he's a pretty cool dude, and I would definitely play him there. Okay, in conclusion, Ulm is a pretty cool nation. I can see why it is a popular suggestion for newer players to play. You have a interesting and forgiving troop line, and you can dip your toes into some magic. I think the theme here is really strong. These like Northern Germanic, Dark Forest, Steel, heavy troops, Black Knights. I think that's pretty good. This is a great nation to wet your teeth on crafting if that's not something you normally do. And you don't have to worry about figuring out a good bless or anything. You can pretty much just slam scales and whatever, and you'll do just fine for yourself. Not my favorite nation ever, but definitely one I do like. I do like their theme. It's a tragedy what happens to them in late age. Stay tuned to find out what happens to them in late age, but it's pretty sad considering our glorious past that we've managed to keep here. All right, let me know in the comments if you have some interesting pretender builds, or if you have just a wacky bless build that you've come up with. The standard one you see everywhere is that mage bless. So that's pretty cookie cutter, but that's kind of because it just works. And double that with you don't need an awake pretender kind of limits your options in a weird way. All right, well, go ahead and get out there, guys. Go ahead and forge yourself some black steel plate, and I will catch you on stream with Middle Age Ulm. Look forward to it.